My name is Kayla DiPilato, and I'm the Director of Marketing, also at Kuvio, and we're super excited to share this with you today.
So every year, Buffer completes an annual review of the state of remote work to analyze trends and highlight where improvement can be made. We've pulled together a few of their findings to start us off. This year they asked, would you like to work remotely at least some of the time for the rest of your career? They also asked, would you recommend remote work for others? Respondents from teams that have integrated remote work into their culture overwhelmingly said yes. When asked the biggest benefit when working from home, flexibility and saving/reinvesting time won across the board. With regards to the biggest struggle when working from home, collaboration, communication, and loneliness have consistently ranked on the top. Later in the presentation, we'll talk through some of the ways to combat this. For those who do not recommend remote work, more than half are on hybrid teams. This may indicate a trend on how hybrid teams structure their remote work. With regards to location, the majority of people who work remotely do so from their home. We will cover the importance of experimenting with your location later.
So we also wanted to share some of our personal experiences with remote work because a lot of what we're going to talk about today is pulled from personal experience and also the experiences of our coworkers that we've talked to and what we've seen firsthand. I'm someone who transitioned from a full-time office job into a full-time remote job, so I've had the opportunity to test out both. And coming into a remote role, I grew to be very passionate about travel while working remotely. I feel extremely lucky to have the opportunity to travel full-time, and I try to take the opportunity as much as I can. I'm also someone who needs to get out of the house each day when I'm working. So when I first started working remotely, I would try to do so from a desk in my apartment, but I found that I was not being very productive by the end of the day. So I've restructured to make sure that every day is a mix, 50-50 mix of working from home and from an alternative location. I'm also really passionate about remote communication and finding ways to improve it. I'm constantly using the Kuvio team as my guinea pigs for that, and we can share some of my best findings from that later on in the presentation. And for me, the thing that took the longest to adjust to when I went from working in an office to remote work was getting used to having only remote coworkers. And we're going to talk about a few ways to address that, but for me, the best way was to schedule time on my calendar to make sure that I connect with my real life friends that I'm seeing in person.
On my end, I also transitioned from working in an office to remote work. For me, remote work is freeing and liberating because you have the opportunity to be your full self when you're given back your time. You get to find out what you're passionate about and pursue it. You can go back to school, you can start a business, you can literally do anything that you've ever wanted to do but did not have the time. Your only limit now is Wi-Fi. It's no longer this insurmountable cost, and this gives you the space to lean into the things that you love outside of work. I know for myself, my biggest challenge has been getting in tune with my work rhythm. As soon as I started remote working, I went to coffee shops, libraries, outdoor parks, museums, and I also worked from my kitchen. Well, a table in my kitchen. It was all amazing, but what I had to find out for myself was that what I prefer most is working in the office a couple days a week and working in coffee shops for the rest of the week. Finding that balance and finding that rhythm took experimenting, but it worked out in the end.
Before we talk about some of the more practical tips and tricks, we just kind of want to give an overview of some of the pros and cons of remote work generally, and also share some of the ways we combat the cons that we found. So the first major pro is reduced work-related stress. So to start, you're not going to be beginning or ending your day with a packed 45-minute commute anymore. You're able to take back that time, start your day in a way that you would like to, and also be more flexible with your working hours. Additionally, when you're communicating remotely, you often have more time to formulate your response when you're getting back to someone rather than responding on the fly, which is also less stressful. And you're also less likely to be pulled into last-minute meetings or interrupted at your desk. Going along with this, another pro of remote work is that it's easier to maintain control of your day. So you're able to schedule for the hours that work for you. You're not tied to that 9 to 5 schedule as much. You can put meetings in the time of the day where you're best in your meetings and leave time when you're best for working independently. You can also put yourself on Do Not Disturb and really dive into a specific project if you need to. All of those things are going to make you more productive than you might be in an office. Studies have also shown that when employees are given increased autonomy in their roles, it leads to more confidence and then in turn higher productivity. And when you're no longer in the same physical location as your boss, you're going to have more freedom and autonomy, which is going to lead to those benefits. Remote work also gives you the chance to take a look at your work-life balance and improve that if it might be a little bit out of whack, especially with the scheduling flexibility, the time you're saving on your commute, and just overall being more productive means that you can be online when you're working and giving everything to work and then switch off, go back to your regular life outside of work and make sure that you're giving that just as much time. Another benefit of remote work is the diverse talent pool that you're able to work with. Since companies aren't limited to hiring in any one specific geographic area, you're able to create a team with very diverse cultural backgrounds, experiences, where they're from even. I've definitely seen on the Kuvio team, since we're from all over the world with very different levels of experience, when we are brainstorming and collaborating together, I think the ideas are much more creative than they otherwise would be. And lastly, remote work really provides an opportunity for a healthier lifestyle. Working in a desk for 8 hours a day is a very sedentary lifestyle, which can take a toll on your body. When you're remote working, you have more flexibility to schedule breaks in your day, to go for a walk, to get up, to do some stretches. You can also schedule your work around workouts at the time that's best for you. So if you'd like to work out in the middle of the day, it's much easier to take that longer break when you're working remotely than in an office. And you don't have to pack your breakfast or lunch for work. You can make that food at home, so you can choose healthier choices, put a little more effort into those. You won't find yourself dining out as much unexpectedly because you didn't have time to make your lunch. And all of those things can lead to a healthier lifestyle.
All right, so now we'll cover the cons of remote work. Isolation has tied for the top of the Isolation has tied for the top struggle in Buffer survey. To combat this, we have created a co-working budget for all employees that covers any tech, office supplies, other expenses, food, co-working spaces, etc. that come with the remote work journey. We do this because we want everyone to be at their best and to reach their top productivity. We know that that requires resources, and it is our responsibility to provide our team with the resources that they need to thrive. We encourage everyone to foster remote work friendships with their colleagues. It takes a bit more effort, but given the logistics, it's definitely worth it. We also have a mental health budget to combat some of the downsides of remote work. This budget gives all team members the resources they need to seek therapy and other mental health resources that they may need along the journey of their remote work. So with turning off, it is incredibly important to turn off. Make sure to set a schedule for yourself and to stick with it. Setting a schedule will help you to turn off and dive into other activities that you find fulfilling. And yes, Netflix counts too. Tracking your hours can also help with preventing burnout and helping with the decision to turn off for the workday. Managers can also set a good example, and they should set a good example by also closing shop for the day when it's time. With regards to the pressure to produce, inherently, when you're working in an office, you look productive by simply being there and typing. When you're working from home, there is no longer someone there watching you. There is no longer someone over your shoulder making sure that you are productive. With remote work, it is somewhat an aspect, an agreement of trust between you and your employer. They trust that you'll do the work, and you trust that when you do the work, it'll be seen as enough, even when you're in the middle of your process. According to Jason Fried from Basecamp, one of the secret benefits of using remote workers is that the work itself becomes the yardstick to judge someone's performance.
So hopefully now we've convinced you that a remote work position is something you might be interested in. So we wanted to share some different tips and tricks for finding remote work jobs. So first we'll start with some application tips. Networking with professionals in your area is a great way to learn about remote work opportunities. You can do a Google search to find professional groups and networking cocktail hours and all different sorts of events where you can meet up with other professionals in your area. Especially at co-working spaces. Co-working spaces are more and more commonly holding evening events as an additional benefit for the people who pay for their space, and often the public can also attend these events, and that's where you're going to be put in a room with a lot of people who are already working remotely. You can meet with them, find out what kind of roles they have, what companies they're working for, and make connections that way. And of course, LinkedIn is a digital way to network that is invaluable. You can do keyword searches, find other people that are working at companies you're interested in, and connect with them that way. Also, when you're applying, you should update your resume to highlight the skills that will help you work remotely. So example, if you have experience working on an international team, you should highlight your skills in cross-cultural communication. If you have any project management experience, it's really great to highlight that because there's a lot of self-management that's involved in remote work, and that's one way to demonstrate that you'll be able to do that. I also suggest removing jobs that are not relevant to the field or position that you're currently looking for. You only have a few seconds when someone picks up your resume to catch their eye, and you don't want the first thing that they see to be something unrelated to the position that you're looking for or the skills that you need to work remotely. Going along with that, more and more companies are actually switching to use computer programs to scan resumes for first round elimination. And so one trick that you can try to help your odds in this case is to match the keywords in your resume with the keywords in the application. So example, if the description says that you should be self-motivated, but your resume currently says that you're a self-starter, you might want to update that phrase to say self-motivated like the description does, because the computer program will definitely be scanning for that word. Of course, you don't want to lie or put anything on your resume that shouldn't already be there. It's just tweaking the phrasing a little bit to match what the company's program might specifically be looking for. And then lastly, I suggest updating your LinkedIn headline to state exactly what you're looking for. You'd be surprised how many recruiters there are on LinkedIn every day looking for candidates to pull in for interviews for different positions, and also people who might bump into you on LinkedIn and see that you're looking for a remote position. And that's a really easy 5-minute thing you can do that can help start putting your name out there and letting people know what you're looking for. There are also several remote specific job boards, so we can make sure that you have access to these slides after the presentation so you can come and click these links, but these are a few that we've sort of vetted and that post a lot or post remote specific jobs. So Crossover, Skip the Drive, Pangea, and Jobspresso are all very well known. I would consider looking into all of those and also looking into the Woman Who Code job board that Megan was mentioning earlier. You can also use keyword searches for remote jobs on traditional job boards. I would not overlook this route. Kuvio posts all of our jobs on traditional job boards because we want a really wide applicant pool and diverse talent. And we aren't always looking for people who know that they want remote jobs. They might just be a really good fit for the skills that we're looking for. So we do post on traditional job boards, so you can definitely find remote roles there as well. You may also be able to ask your employer to work remotely in your current role. That's a really great avenue if you already enjoy the role that you're in and you think it might be possible. And there are some questions you can ask yourself to assess if it would be a good fit for you and your role to switch to remote work. So first, just consider all the daily tasks that you do in a given week and think if you could do those solely from a computer or a phone. Also think the same about the meetings that you're participating in. Would you be able to be on a video call or a phone call? If you have a lot of paperwork or equipment or prototypes that you're working with, it's going to be more difficult than if you're simply more tied to your laptop and maybe a few notes on your desk. Also consider if most of your meetings are internal or external. If you have client meetings that are often in person, when you switch to remote work, you're also going to be asking all of your clients to adapt to this new style and meet with you remotely. And you have to consider if the client base that you have is going to be open to doing that. So that's something else to think about. Also considering if you're a self-starter. Remote work is much more independent than working in an office, and you need to be able to make sure that you're going to be disciplined enough to keep up with your work, even when there's not so much structure. Also consider if you're a top performer at your company. If you're very valuable to your team and you bring a lot to the table, your company is going to be more likely to bend in order to accommodate you because they want to keep you around. So consider what sort of leverage you have with your employer. Also ask yourself if you thrive when you're pursuing goals that you're passionate about. When working remotely, I find that a lot of the motivation comes from within rather than external pressures. So you have to consider if in your current role you have enough passion to find that internal motivation, even when the external pressures are reduced. You can also think about what your ideal work situation is. So are you motivated by collaborating, or do you like to go off into the quiet and have some alone time to get into the flow? You can also picture when you're doing your best work and what kind of environment that is, and think about how you might recreate that outside of the office. Also consider how much validation you need to feel successful. There's less opportunities when you're working remotely to check in on your work and be validated. Not saying that it doesn't happen, it definitely still does. It just might be less frequent and more formal when it does happen rather than quick stops at your supervisor's desk. Also think about if you can make important decisions in your role without the help of your boss. It's a lot more independent when you're working remotely and you might need to make choices on the fly. So thinking about how much autonomy you would be able to take on your role is important. And then think about if you can handle tough feedback and criticism. Something that I've heard from people who have switched to working remotely is that feedback does come in a much more direct way just because it's written, and in order to get things done, you're trying to minimize the number of messages that are needed, and it's a bit more difficult to qualify criticism. I'm not saying that it's necessarily harsher, it's just delivered differently, and it's good to think about if you would be well suited to handle that.
Next up, you would review your company's HR policies to make sure that remote work is possible and to make sure that you know what the guidelines are. Come to that meeting with the data supporting your productivity that will come with that meeting. Come to that meeting prepared to talk about how your productivity and the company's productivity is important to you and your boss. Explain how the situation will benefit not only you, but also the company. Be aware of your worth and your role, and come armed with the research about the benefits of remote work. Please keep in mind that your employer may not know the statistics on remote work, so you are coming into this space to give them new information. Come with a plan. Be ready to answer the questions and explain your why. And keep in mind, this may be the first time your employer is taking a look at this research. Commit to a trial period. This change may not happen overnight, but it will most likely mean working remotely a few days at first. You are most likely to get a yes when things are calm at work, so please do not ask during your company's busy season. Your boss is probably going to need time to see the productivity at work, so please keep that in mind. Another option is to not ask. You could find a company that'll allow you to work remotely without micromanaging your life. Find someone that's going to meet you either at your salary or above your salary and secure an offer that is favorable to you. Then have a conversation with your employer asking them for the same terms. The same terms could literally be you wanting to work from home and being willing to start a trial. Either they agree and you stay, or you're able to make that move because you have prepared a secondary offer. The key here is the importance of your well-being and for you to not compromise yourself.
So now we want to dive into some of our tips and tricks for working remotely. And we will start with communication tips. So the first one is to be considerate in all of your interactions with your coworkers. So for example, at Kuvio, if we know we need to move a meeting that was already scheduled, we try to ask our coworkers as soon as possible being aware that they may have rescheduled their day to make that meeting. They might have canceled something in their personal life that they would have liked to do. So just trying to be respectful of others' time and think about how your actions are going to affect them can go a really long way when you're communicating remotely. Another example is if team members are on vacation, we respect that and don't reach out. Time away from work should be kept as time away from work, and we would never penalize someone for not checking their email or Slack while they're off. Basically, the overall guiding principle for remote work communication should just be thinking about how the other person will feel. Since you won't be able to see their facial expressions necessarily, it might be or their body language, might be more difficult to judge how they're feeling, so you just want to put in that little bit of extra effort. You should also set expectations within your team and company for how communication should play out. With remote communication, the norms aren't as set as they are in offices. It hasn't been going on for as long. There's a lot more flexibility. So it's up to you and your team to begin to set those expectations. So for example, at Kuvio, we have a mutual expectation that all team members will reply within 24 hours to any communication during the working week. We have all learned to ask questions with a bit of lead time before we really need an answer so that people have enough time to get back to us within that 24-hour window. And it also holds us accountable to not putting off answering things and slowing down the team's work. And also just being ready to compromise. With remote work, you might find that you have to work an hour later to make a meeting for someone who's a different time zone, but know that a week later they'll probably be waking up before the sun to meet with you because they're accommodating your time zone. So just a little bit of give and take can really go a long way. Also, if something isn't working for you, you have to let your team know so that you can come to a compromise because, like I said, it's a little bit harder to judge when something isn't working when you aren't communicating face to face. We also really encourage remote teams to still make connections that are not just related to work, so still keeping a bit of a personal connection with your coworkers. So example, on Slack, we have a digital water cooler channel where the only rule is to talk about anything except work, so people there can post what they're up to, what they did over the weekend, and everyone can reply. It's really a good way to get to know each other. And we also implemented water cooler meetings. So these are once a week, 30-minute meetings that are optional to attend, where everyone can just come together and talk about anything that isn't work. So this is a really great way to create that extra bond with your coworkers that will come in handy later when you are working on projects, just because you'll know the person a little better, you'll feel more comfortable working with each other. And they're also just a lot of fun. I've had great conversations about people's travels, movies that they like, a very long conversation about popcorn at one point. So they're just a really great little break in the week as well. Also, think twice before hitting send. All words are really hard to take back, but taking back written words are almost impossible. So you just really want to be thoughtful about what you're sending and think about how the other person is going to perceive it. If you're feeling upset or emotional when you're drafting an email or message, I recommend just taking a walk, taking a lap around for a bit, cooling off, taking some deep breaths, coming back and rereading what you've written and making sure that you're 100% sure that that's what you want to say. And then recognize good work. It can be a little bit more difficult when you're working remotely to give people compliments and remember to shout them out when they're doing great work. But if the whole team makes an effort to continue to do that, even remotely, everyone's going to feel really engaged and excited about working together. So if you see something that someone's done really well, shout them out in a public Slack channel or send them a DM or an email and just let them know that you recognize what they're doing and you're really happy with it.
Also, answer all the questions. So even if the answer is, I'm not sure, let me look into this and I'll get back to you in a few hours, please do not leave people on red. No one is going to know that you're looking for the answer unless you tell them. So please keep that in mind. When you have information, share it. So when you get really good advice, not good advice, when you get really good information, something awesome for a client, you want to run and share it with the team. As quickly as you want to run to share good information, please also run to share information that may not be so great. Don't procrastinate and wait for someone to ask you because while it may feel great in the short term, it is going to derail the team in the long run. You want to be able to share information as quickly as you can, whether it's good or bad. Also, have a plan for emergencies. So I know for myself, if there's an emergency with a client or something going on with anything with regards to work, I have a point person. If my point person is out of office, there are three more people that I can contact. And if they are out of office or sick, or it's too early or too late to contact them, then the next line in procedure is for me to just act on the thing with my best judgment. Please have a plan. And if you do not already have a plan, please work with your employer and your colleagues to create a plan. Setting your own vibe. So setting your vibe wherever you are helps work to feel less like work and more like just a part of your day. Location, location, location. Your location is incredibly important. So experimenting again with where you work is going to help you to feel like your most productive self, and it is genuinely going to make work not feel like work. Your office should be this happy space where you never dread heading into it when it's time for work. I know on my end, my office is directly next to my kitchen. So when I start work in the morning, I'm able to walk right into the kitchen, make my favorite type of coffee, do my morning stuff, and then walk into the office. It's literally set up that way so that it's a part of the flow of my day, and I'm my happiest self after that first cup of coffee.
We have a few more rapid fire productivity tips. So the first is to stick to a sleep schedule. Studies have shown that productivity during the day is higher when you wake up and go to bed around the same time each day. With remote work, you're not as tied to that 9 to 5 schedule, so you have opportunity to switch up your schedule, play with what works for you. Maybe you like to go to bed really late and wake up later, or go to bed early and wake up really early, which is all really great. Just attempting to do that at the same time every day will help you be more productive during the day. Going along with that, having a routine can also help you remain committed to getting work done and make it easier for you to stick to a schedule where you're productive for several days each week. That consistency is really important. So for me, for example, I'm currently on a 4-month trip through South America, and so a lot of things in my life are constantly changing, but I've made an effort to find a spin class in every city that I've visited, attend that 3 days a week, and then immediately start working. So that is a routine that I know I have at least 3 days a week with dedicated time to work, and it's kept me very productive and on track with all of my tasks. Also, don't stay in your pajamas while you're working. I know that it's very tempting if you're going to work from home, but you'll find that showering and putting on different working clothes, even if it's just jeans and your favorite t-shirt, it's going to make you feel a lot more awake and alert throughout the day than if you were to stay in your PJs and work from your bed. Take breaks throughout the day. Our brains are not designed to be productive for 8 hours straight, and with remote work, you have the flexibility to build some downtime into your day, so make sure that you do that. Whether you like to take a bit of a longer lunch in the middle of the day, or in the afternoon you like to go for a walk, just find some time in the day to get away, because when you come back, you'll be even more productive than before you left. You can set up a reward system for yourself. So I know that when working in an office, there are often a lot of perks offered, like end of the day happy hour or donuts on Friday, that can kind of keep you going through those little milestones. And there's no reason you shouldn't set up similar perks for yourself to keep motivated. So for example, maybe on Fridays, if you finish all your work, you go get your nails done or you go on your favorite hike. Just make sure that if you set up a reward system, you really stick to it. So if you don't finish everything, you don't give yourself the reward, but if you do, you definitely go enjoy it. Being organized in your workspace can help you stay more focused and feel less overwhelmed by the tasks that you have. So my apartment is usually very disorganized and crazy, but the one spot that I make sure stays clear is my desk. I don't let any clutter pile up there because when I'm working, I can sit there and really block everything out and zone out. So having an organized physical space can help you be more organized in your role. Going along with organization, creating a to-do list becomes super important when you're remote because you have to keep track of all of your own tasks. There are a lot less of those little reminders that might trigger something in your brain, as in when in office you see your coworker walk by and you're like, oh, I was supposed to email her. Things like that aren't happening as often. So creating a to-do list is a great way to stay on top of everything. And later in the presentation, I will share a tool that I really like for keeping your to-do list organized. And then finally, make time to see other people. You can easily isolate yourself when working remotely, but that's actually going to zap your productivity the longer it goes on. So put some time on your calendar to get out of the house, hang out with the people that you care about, and by the time you come back, you'll be much more productive in your work. Also, experiment with your location. A lot of people are really great working from their home office or maybe even just their kitchen table, but for some people that might not be right. You might be better off working in a coffee shop, a park with Wi-Fi, a museum cafe, a co-working space, something different. But unless you've tried, you're not going to really know what your sweet spot is for productivity for working. So I suggest trying a lot of different locations, trying different times of days for visiting them, staying for different lengths of time, and just over the course of a few weeks or even a couple months, seeing what makes you feel the most productive and then sticking with that.
All right, so now we're going to cover some of our favorite tools. First and foremost, we have Slack. So Slack is amazing for communication, collaborating across the team, and with clients. You can use the app on your tablet, your phone, your computer, and your computer. So it's great for on-the-go communication. You can also utilize Slack for calls and video conferencing. Across the board, with remote working, communication is key. So Slack is an amazing, robust tool to get you there. Next, we have Google Drive. So having all of your work and files in the drive is a lifesaver. For me, I have access to everything I need on literally any device. All I need is an internet connection. I know on my end, I think maybe a year or two ago, I was working in the morning prepping for a meeting and I accidentally spilled cranberry juice all over my laptop. Had to go to the Apple store, get it fixed. They were going to have it for a week. What was the best consolidation for me was literally being able to do all of my work from my iPad without missing a beat. Next up, we have the backlog in Microsoft Visual Studio. So because we're a software company, this is our task management software. If your company is different, it's totally okay for you to use something else, but we 100% advocate for some type of task management software, whether that is Monday.com, Asana, or Trello. Please find whatever it is that works best for you and your company and implement this type of tool because it is very important and super useful not only to track your own tasks, but to be able to track the duration of projects and to see what everyone else on the team is working on. Next up, we have Toggle. So Toggle's time tracking will help you with planning throughout your day and your week most efficiently. Toggle is amazing because it's free and it literally, I know for myself, I personally have used Toggle. I've been using Toggle for years. And I will literally take 1 to 2 week spans and time track all of the work that I'm doing just to get a better look at how long it takes me to do certain projects so that I can plan them out better in my week. Toggle also helps with burnout. You're able to better see how much time you've been working, and it helps you to better just put a stop at the end of your day. Next up, we have Icebreakers. So Icebreakers is this awesome Slack add-on that Kayla brought to our team. Icebreakers basically asks you a set of random questions once a week, and it's pretty incredible. So for example, our team was asked during a zombie apocalypse, what skills could you bring to the team so that we will not all die? It was amazing. I got to learn so much about our team members, and it was just a nice, fun thing to do during the day. Moments like these are important because, again, fostering relationships while remote working takes a little bit more effort. With regards to Google Hangouts Meet, it is incredible. So it is another tool that promotes collaboration, communication, and staying on the same page with your team. Communication is gold on a remote work team, so setting meetings is definitely going to help you strengthen that. It, again, does not have to be Google Hangouts Meet, but we do promote setting weekly meetings or monthly meetings or quarterly meetings with the people on your team, one, so that you can all stay on the same page, and two, so that the communication is smooth across the board.
Next up is a tool that everyone has probably heard of, and that is Spotify, which is our favorite app for making sure that we have all the music we need to keep us productive. But we did want to highlight a lesser known feature of Spotify, which is collaborative playlists. So these are playlists that everyone on your team, you can share it, and everyone can edit and add songs, change the order of songs. And this is something that we use on our team as another way to stay connected. It's a great way to keep busy working, seeing what new songs people have added and connecting that way. The next tool is probably my favorite tool of all of the tools we're talking about today, and that is Grammarly. Grammarly is a spelling and grammar checker that is much more advanced than anything you're going to find integrated into a word processor automatically. So in addition to finding literally every spelling and grammar mistake that you make, it can also give you tips for changing up your tone or improving your sentence structure. They check for plagiarism automatically, so there's just a lot of great features. And recently Grammarly rolled out an integration with Google Docs, so now if you're writing in a Google Doc and you have the Grammarly app installed, you don't even need to copy and paste into a different platform. It's going to pop up all the edits right there for you. And then we have Doodle. This is a great tool to find out when everyone is free for scheduling meetings. You can create and send out a poll to everyone that you would like to have on the meeting, and then they all check off the times that they're available, and at the end it will generate a report that says what the optimal meeting time is, and you can go ahead and schedule from there. With the number of different time zones and working schedules that we have on our team at Kuvio, this has been really important for getting scheduling done. Going along with that, I also really like World Time Buddy, which is a tool for organizing different time zones. It's really, really user-friendly and simple. You can type in all the different cities that you're trying to coordinate between, and then it will show you linearly what day and time it is at that place at a given time. So you can set, if you're trying to schedule a meeting at 9 a.m. on Monday in Eastern Standard Time, you can see how that affects every other time zone. They also give really great alerts for daylight savings time, which can definitely throw a wrench in things and make things confusing, so it's helpful that they do that. I also really like Evernote. Evernote helps you organize and save things that you find across the web, and you can also integrate that with your own notes. So whenever I'm doing research, I don't like to print things because I like to limit the number of paperwork that I keep on my desk and also save trees. So I can save everything that I want to read later in Evernote, divide it by different projects, leave my own thoughts and notes right in there, and it really keeps my research work that I do much more organized. And then lastly, Todoist is the to-do list tool that I alluded to earlier. So this is a really great digital tool for keeping all of your to-do lists organized. You can set reminders and also keep track of your progress on projects. You can also nest larger to-do lists with smaller tasks in them. You can collaborate with others if someone's helping you on a project, and it also just feels really satisfying when you get to check off tasks. So I'd highly recommend giving that a try.
Next, we're going to cover travel tips while working remotely. So first and foremost, please set a budget. I know when you are traveling, you want to do everything and eat everything and experience everything that that new culture has to offer. Please set a budget. Things add up quickly, and you definitely do not want to be on day 7 of a 14-day trip running out of money. Furthermore, research currency exchange and local prices. So if you are looking for currency, I know for sure Bank of America, if you go on their website, you can put in the currency that you want, and they will either mail it to your house or mail it to the branch closest to your home. With regards to local prices, you definitely want to research how much a meal for two will cost, how much water is, how much the local fruit is. This is going to help you to plan in your budget, and it'll make your trip more enjoyable. Also, be considerate of time zones. If you were working in EST and you will now be in Madrid, please tell your team. It's literally not so that you have to remain working in Eastern Standard Time. It's so that they know there is now a time difference, and that lead time that Kayla was talking about before has to be adjusted. Do your research ahead of time. At least have a plan for where you'll work and stay. So when you get off the plane, the best thing that you can do for yourself is know where your Wi-Fi is. If you're working the next day after your flight, you need to know exactly where you're going to be able to work. Throughout your trip, you're going to find new internet cafes. You're going to find new internet cafes, you're going to find coffee shops, you're going to find museums, you're going to find all of these wonderful places with Wi-Fi. But knowing your first point of contact and knowing where that Wi-Fi will be is incredibly important. Next up, protect yourself. So traveler's insurance is a good way to protect you and your belongings. I know for myself, I am not the best in getting insurance for my tickets. However, we for sure want you to get insurance for yourself. Safety Wing is an incredible insurance for nomads, and we highly suggest you check it out. Next up, see a doctor. So please make sure to check out if you need vaccinations for where you're going. And if you do need vaccinations, please schedule those appointments ahead of time. I know for myself, I've definitely been very last minute in trying to get my vaccinations, and I literally almost did not make my trip. With regards to prescriptions, research to make sure you can bring your medications to the country you're entering. For some countries, you'll be required to provide extra documentation, and that is something that you definitely want to know ahead of time. With regards to visas, again, please research if you need a visa to go to the country you'd like to go. And then please secure it as soon as possible. We do know that that's not always possible, and you're literally getting your visa in the airport before you get to your destination. But if there is some time that you can get it ahead of time, please do. Also, get things done. So create a schedule of when you plan to work and stick to it. Again, the relationship between you and your employer when you're a remote worker is one of trust. So while you may want to eat everything and do everything and experience the cultures of the places you'll be traveling, getting your work done is also important. So please make a schedule and stick to it so that you'll have an enjoyable trip and you will still have your job.
A few more tips for working remotely and traveling. The first is to pack smart. So you really want to avoid the hassle of lugging around too much with you and also avoid those crazy airline baggage fees. And you can do this by editing down your belongings. So my pro tip for this is to pull out everything you think you would like to bring on the trip, put it in a pile in the middle of your floor. I like to then sort everything by category, so like pants, shirts, shoes, and then take a look and see what you can remove. So for example, by doing this, you might realize you don't need 5 pairs of jeans. 2 is probably going to be good. And reducing the number of items that you have with you is going to make you a lot more limber as you're traveling, just make everything a bit easier. Although, as I'm saying that, you should also allow yourself to bring one silly item with you on your trip, especially if it's a longer trip. So something that's going to remind you of home or make you feel more comfortable, make your experience easier, anything like that. So that could be pictures of friends and family, it could be a stuffed animal that you've had since you were a kid. Right now I'm traveling with someone from India and he brought a lot of spices so that he can still make the food that he loves. So just something that, yes, it takes up a lot of space. No, it's not practical, but it makes your experience better. You also want to think about what you're packing your belongings into. It's not fun when your suitcase zipper breaks in the middle of a transition to a new country and you're heading through the airport with trash bags, which I have seen firsthand from a friend. So you want to give your suitcase a good checkup before you leave on a long trip and see if you need to upgrade and invest in a new piece. Away Luggage is my current favorite suitcase brand. This is not sponsored in any way. I've just had a really great experience having that bag. I'm able to pack it more full than any suitcase I've had before, and they also have a lot of other great little features in there, so I would recommend checking that out if you're looking to invest in new luggage. And going along with that, you should also invest with the tech you're bringing. It's critical that you're able to do your job while traveling. That's sort of the whole point. So you want to make sure that your computer and phone and anything else you might need are going to hold up during your trip. So what I recommend is doing a little tech checkup before you leave, bringing your devices to the Apple or Microsoft store or wherever you might have got it, and just asking them to check up and make sure everything's in working order. I did that just before leaving for my current trip, and the Apple Store employee actually gave me a new charger for my computer and told me that mine definitely wouldn't have lasted the 4 months that I'm gone. And of course, there are Apple stores and other technology stores in other countries, but it's just a little bit easier if you can handle it at home when you know where the store is, you're speaking in your native language. So if you can do that before you leave, sort of why not make it a little easier? And then lastly, find friends while you're traveling. Solo travel can be a super great growing experience and a lot of fun, but also at times you might want some company. And there are tons of great Facebook groups online for all types of travelers coming from all different places, going to all different places with all different interests. And everyone in those groups join them because they want to meet people, so don't hesitate to make connections that way. There are also a lot of travel-specific programs popping up for digital nomads. So, for example, I'm currently traveling with Remote Year. So I now have 39 new travel buddies that stay with me at all times, and it has been the most amazing experience. I could probably ramble on about that for a whole nother webinar. So if anyone has any questions about traveling with Remote Year or a similar program, feel free to reach out to me directly when we share our emails at the end. So that sort of wraps up our presentation for today. Just some closing thoughts. The first is to look for a supportive company. That's really important to how your remote working experience is going to turn out. You want to have a company that supports you and also your work-life balance and your freedom to explore, which really impacts the remote work experience. You want to be cautious of companies that say that you can work remotely, but then micromanage you every step of the way, because that might lead you to have a negative experience and turn away from remote work when really the problem is the company culture. You also want to set up the systems that make you productive. Just do the research, trial and error, find out what makes you your best, most productive self, and then really lean into that. Remote work is an agreement based on trust, and your end of the bargain that you need to hold up is being productive and getting your work done. So just put the systems in place that allow you to do that. And finally, seek work that is fulfilling. Remote work in part is so enjoyable because you get to do work that you love and also have balance with the rest of your life. But you'll be the most productive and the most willing to self-motivate when the work that you're doing also is engaging and interesting to you. So try to find a role that is not only remote but also fulfilling. So that's all the information that we have to share today. Rhonda and I invite you to keep in touch with us. We have our emails in the upper left-hand corner of this slide. So please do not hesitate to email any questions, thoughts, feedback you have. If you want to chat further about any of the topics that we covered today, we really do love talking about this stuff, so we would love to hear from you. But besides that, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.